right, welcome to the three-way chat, the initial chat, the first log of perhaps a series. We've got with us Mr. Brian. He's joined us.
Yep.
As well as Mr. Hanarati. Is it?
Yeah, Luan.
Okay.
Luan Hanarati, and we're welcome to the broadcast as well. We're broadcasting from an empty classroom that we've gemmed the lock to get in. So there's the first of many podcasts, I think.
Yep, teachers being juvenile delinquents. We're going to try to flip things around in this podcast, kind of turn things on their head, take a look at things from the outside in, the inside out, or right in the middle, kind of looking at the storm spinning around, either as a teacher in a foreign country or as a student just totally lost in a classroom, as so often is the case. So we got people from different backgrounds, teachers and students, in international education, in ESL education. It's a maelstrom, but it's a really interesting one. There's so much stuff at work. There's so many different ways to talk about it, to think about it. And one of the things that we all do here is ESL education.
Right. So I thought, the best topic to kick off, a good topic, there's a million topics out there, of course, but a good one to start with would be drama, because Garrett and I were talking about it the other day, and we were thinking that, it's something that's massively underrepresented in this industry, yet at the same time, it's one of the most productive, most helpful, most communicative things that you can actually do in a classroom is drama.
Well, why is it so underrepresented? Is that a cultural thing? I tend to think it's a little bit of A, a little bit of B. I think it's cultural. I don't think there's much of a history of that kind of education where we're teaching.
Yeah.
And I think it's also B, that good drama education takes a lot of resources. You need a low student to teacher ratio to teach it. You need a highly trained teacher to teach it. It's different, and it takes a lot of energy. It takes a lot of commitment to do a good drama program. So I think that kind of that barrier to entry isn't without, the reason it's not there isn't without good reason.
I also believe it just takes a lot of emotional interaction that some teachers are not willing to put in, or are just too distant to commit to.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let's go back to the roots of drama. What did you say yesterday about it came from people like Aristophanes and the Greeks, the ancient Greeks were the people who did it so well and so often. But what were your reasons? You give several reasons for using drama.
Well, yeah. You look at the history of drama. I didn't major in drama. I took a couple courses, and I've always been in drama since high school. Produced a few, directed a few plays myself. And history is just so interesting because it's tied in with the history of the Western culture, right?
Yeah.
And with the idea of democracy, because it's inherently so participatory, right? It's about discussing with and coping with community issues. It's about debating these things kind of in an open forum. It didn't start as a script, right? It didn't start as a piece of literature, which is how we think of drama today. In classroom, we get Shakespeare in a book, right? And we say, well, read Shakespeare. But that's not what drama was like. It was about sort of people coming together, and the roots go back, they say, to these dithyrambs, these Greek rituals, harvest festivals and these sorts of things, singing songs, changing them. This person's turn to talk. He's got the conch, he's got the microphone. Now it's her turn to do her thing, and then people kind of building off that energy. I think it's sort of that participation of dealing with history, of dealing with issues that are modern today as well, and of kind of forming identity.
So there came a point where the purpose of it was it's almost satirical to make a running commentary on what the issues that are happening, the wars that are going on, social issues that are happening perhaps at the time. So how do we kind of translate that into what we're doing in the classroom? Is there a bigger purpose than just a purely linguistic purpose?
Well, absolutely. I think drama is well suited as an art form. All art, of course, is meant to communicate some kind of information, right? And certain art forms, certain media formats are well suited to certain situations or certain types of communication. Drama, of course, being participatory, being engaging with a small community, is well set for a classroom. We wouldn't want to try and teach physics and give them a bunch of paintbrushes and canvases, right? But getting them acting out, doing
it's one of the most appropriate things you can actually do, but so many teachers seem to be sort of scared of doing it. They've never been given direction. And like we mentioned, the other day, was that there is, if you look for the literature out there actually isn't a great deal of literature, and the literature that there is it's pretty academic, not very practical, pretty boring, pretty dull, and we were thinking, there's really room for someone to do something a bit more fun and a bit more exciting with that.
Yeah, I think that you're right. There is a lack of literature, and I feel like it just hasn't even been done. I'm sure that there's stories throughout the last 100 years or so of the globalized world, of the modern world, where you've had a couple of these drama teachers in international settings kind of killing it. But is that documented? Has that been archived? Has that been shared? Now more than ever, these are the kind of things we want to see, where we can have kids, as you said, like, what's the function of it? It's an ESL function because it's linguistic, it's communicative,
right.
But there's also this, which I think is much more critical and goes back to the roots, this social intelligence aspect, and kind of this therapeutic kind of aspect, dealing the catharsis, dealing with sort of the modern day tensions, which are, according to some reports, on the rise. In schools or in the world, you've got these tensions going on. How are they dealt with? Well, they're not dealt with in a very human sense. They're dealt with through social media. They're dealt with through Facebook, kind of disconnected, divided, increasingly clicked out things. Whereas if you're brought together in a drama class, it's like everybody speaks, everybody's got to go, what's going on? I think it's just a whole different experience from a lot of the ways
they kind of have to deal with it in an extemporaneous way as well in a classroom. There's not time to dwell on it and overanalyze things. They've got to. It's very
spontaneous.
Yeah, it is spontaneous, right?
Well, that's the thing. It's one of those dialectics. You talk. I think it's one of these relationship theories talks about the dialectics of relationships and spontaneity and control, right? Or a novel experience. Versus a routine experience, or an interpersonal versus an independent experience. We've got these dialectics of relationship time, but I think it also is there with manage the classroom, right? We've also got to manage the different types of activities and experiences that we, as teachers, and I'm a big fan of the teacher-designer, teacher- kind of model. We are teacher this, teacher artist, teacher designer, teacher whatever, teacher writer. We design those experiences, so if they become... What was I talking about?
I mean, to go back to one point that we mentioned the Greeks before, and Aristotle had a name for it. I can't remember what it was, but it's the tragedy, isn't it? The tragedy is the key thing. That's what the Greeks loved, wasn't it? The tragedy to them, and in Shakespeare as well, was everything's hunky-dory, everything's going great, and everyone's having a good time, and life is perfect, and then suddenly it's what I call the fly in your soup moment, where you look down and everything goes off a cliff. And a comedy, of course, is the opposite of that. And in Shakespeare's time, that everyone would get married at the end, and it would be full of jokes and everything. But if what you can do, if you can look at any kind of movie, and any kind of play, Shakespeare plays are great for this, is just to find that one scene where it does turn, it does go off a cliff, there's a sudden crisis, comes out of nowhere, as crises always do, and that has to be resolved. And getting students to play that out, that one single scene, you don't have to do the entire performance. I think that's what freaks a lot of teachers out. It's like, all right, we need costumes, we need a proper stage. Well, you don't really. You can do it on a very much less is more.
Yeah, and if you set the context too, right? Obviously, you say like, who's Julius? You can't just jump into Julius Caesar getting stabbed. Like, let's go cold call like. Everyone's going to be like, what just happened? But if you go like, look, Julius Caesar, Brutus, Mark Antony, Rome, what's a little bit of background, you spend 10, 15 minutes, you set the history, the background of the story, and then, I think you're right. You can do it kind of light, and you can still get the kind of the experience we're looking for.
Well, I think the beauty of it is, once you do something like Julius Caesar and any Shakespeare play, then the good thing about Shakespeare and real classics is that you can always translate them into a modern context. So it's a fight with the neighbours, or someone having issues at work with his boss, or someone with a henpecked husband, or someone has to move outside their comfort zone and do things they're not very comfortable with, and that's the kind of
perennial questions, right? I mean, these are central questions that go across time. I mean, like Shakespeare was always drawing from Roman and Greek theater as well. He was famously just like ripping off plot lines, ripping off issues.
But, sorry to interrupt.
Go ahead.
A purely practical standpoint, getting the students involved in this doesn't necessarily have to be so alien for them because of our current media situation with television and movies. It's not so alien. It's not a totally alien art form.
The alien thing for them is actually performing,
participating,
doing,
right. But it's addictive. Like if it's done, I think at first it's intimidating, and you kids that don't want to participate. But that's where the great teacher and the great lesson kind of comes in. It's like, come on now, like you got to kind of pull teeth a little bit. But if once you get them out there, it's like, whoa, what a rush! Whoa, that was interesting.
Yeah. Well, I don't think there's anything more satisfying for an ESL teacher or any kind of teacher to see students who are fearful, nervous, shy, whatever, and they say, I can't do this, teacher, I can't do this, and you sort of prompt them and say, come on, it's only a game, it's only an English class, it's only a bit of fun, and when you suddenly get that realisation of, oh, I actually did do that there, I did it off the cuff without any script, and I can do it again now. And that confidence you can see it in their faces, and it, like I say, it's what's so satisfying.
And on an individual level, it's so needed. But then also the experience of the group then is also really cool too, because when you get individuals as a group coming together and building something more than would have been just kind of farting around with yourself, they go, wait a minute, look what we just did together. You take a step back and everyone claps, right? Like what was that scene? What just emerged? You're doing improv, you're doing something spontaneous. Like you see your peer, like one of these kids in our classes, right? You see Billy or Johnny or whoever who isn't paying attention, is kind of nervous, thinking about whatever in a normal classroom setting, and then all of a sudden the lights turn on when you've got things going on, and everyone's proud of him as well. Like it's like, what did he just do? And you can celebrate those moments for your classmates.
It completely bonds them as a team, doesn't it?
That's right. Yeah, that's exactly right.
Yeah, camaraderie. And I had this similar experience with my dance education.
Here we go.
What kind of dance did you do? All sorts.
Modern and ballet.
Right.
But there was a sense of camaraderie with this, and we were not good dancers. There was a few good dancers in the program, but we're not like, it wasn't a big university. A lot of Midwestern people who just wanted to get on stage and make a fool out of themselves.
Show off and stuff,
yeah.
You're always going to get that. In fact, part of the deal is reining them in and stopping them completely dominating it and letting
not just those, but even people who were just nervous. I didn't like being on stage. I never liked being on stage. But I'd get up there and just do the most ridiculous crap with it, and everyone else was doing it. And it was just fun. I mean, I just didn't care that.
So you overcame your fear of it.
Yeah, it was just.
I saw you perform in front of like 500 people. You did this modern dance where you were unstitching yourself from like a Nintendo. It was like and it was like an 8-bit and you designed that dance piece though.
I helped Jamie Hoffman design that.
And that was audio engineering as well, or is that?
I did. Oh, actually, I did all the audio engineering for the dance program. All of them came in with songs.
Yeah.
And I would cut up the songs and fit them time-wise into the program.
So you felt that was a really meaningful thing to get involved in as a student, was join a dance troupe?
Yeah.
You made a lot of friends.
Well, maybe it's something we should do here,
I wasn't friends with many of our dancers.
Yeah.
It was mostly girls. They were like, I don't know. Hoffman was he was a cool guy, but I didn't really like hang out with him.
But you were able to exercise your skills though, right? You were able to draw on your technology skills, your audio engineering skills, and kind of apply those, take those to the next level. It's one of these concepts I think Steinkühler and Squire at Wisconsin-Madison talk about video games and learning. They talk about competency trajectories, that video games, especially modern video games, offer kids different skill trajectories to move into. You get into an MMO like a WoW, and you can become an organizer, right? To get to level 10 doesn't require that much, but to get to level 20, you have to be able to put a team together. You have to find people. Then you've also got people who are doing forums. You've got readers. You've got writers, people writing articles. You've got people who are modifying games, modding games. All of a sudden, they're becoming designers. So you got all these different trajectories people can take on, from leadership to writing to independent stuff. I mean, drama is just such an awesome example of this as well, with production, direction, costume design, writing.
There's sort of room for everyone in the family, isn't it? Like, everyone can specialise in something. It's a really positive thing to do. Like, I think that's what we should sort of aim for, is doing an end of term.
Yeah,
a big production where everybody can get involved
in some capacity. Right, and we're not going to get everybody on stage, but everybody
level or every.
Probably everybody from a course. So like, yeah, everyone from the club who's ever doing the course. Or from the club.
Right.
So if we do the club model, it's obviously much easier because you get people who are like willing, you know, but if you do the class model, you got to be a little more creative.
Well, in the class model, obviously you don't have the costumes, you don't have the resources, you've got to make do. It's like the theatre of the poor. The theatre of the poor. You've heard of that concept? It's like you know, there's a Polish guy came up with this, I can't remember his name now. But anyway, it's just like relying on the dialogue, relying on the characters, and using some very simple props. And I think that's all you need really to begin with. For ESL purposes, you don't need all the fancy stuff. But you know, a camera helps if you've got a camera in the classroom. That makes it a bit more serious and a bit more real. And you know,
you get the editors as well.
Well, I think one thing I like to do to kick off with, I think there's broadly speaking two ways to do it. There's one way is as a director to jump in all the time, and one way to let it breathe and be very hands off and just let them do it, and then give them feedback at the end of that and let them perform it. You know, repetition might be slightly boring for the teacher, but it's definitely not boring for them because they always do a better job the second time round. You can swap the roles around. I think, you know, the other thing is, you know, don't have them write lines. That's too restrictive. Get them do it extemporaneously.
Yeah.
Get them to off the cuff and then
get a sense for the scene, right? Yeah. What is going on in the scene? It doesn't matter the words. What's the character thinking? What's the character feeling? What are they doing there? Yeah. And then, yeah, right. That kind of gives a doorway to a lot of, especially with Shakespeare.
And obviously, if you want to really ESLify it, then you have a load of target grammar and vocabulary that you sort of prime before the class. You know?
Well, now we're getting into something, you know, that's quite the machine. That's a beautiful
There's a real art to that.
Yeah.
And then, there would be a place for that as well, because actually, you know, I'm sure you know when you've been in classrooms, especially doing the basics English and things like that, there's always a lot of stock phrases that you kind of teach,
right?
And they never seem to get used, you know. But with role plays and drama, it's a one time they do actually get used.
And it's everyday language. Like when you look at Arthur Miller, or you look at O. Henry, or you look at some of these more modern playwrights, like they're writing great, like everyday kind of speech, great like cuss words and euphemisms and all these sorts of things that are still kind of used today, which you don't see in an ESL book and you don't see in a textbook, but are expressive modern English.
Yeah, it's really practical and functional language, isn't it? Yeah, that they don't really get experienced to. I mean, or you know, learning English in the classroom is all about the textbook, listening resources, which are kind of, they're not very authentic, you know. So yeah, it's one opportunity to do that.
Absolutely. Well, we have to go here soon.
Let's wrap it up. Yeah.
One last thing. When I was thinking back to my dance education, we talked about lack of resources for drama. I found the same thing when I took a dance education course. It was supposed to be bringing dance into other subject areas for elementary school level.
Yeah, you could do that, can't you?
But the resources were so bad. I mean, maybe my research was a little sparse at the undergrad level, but
look, it's one of these things which is it's a frontier area. I think, you know, the materials aren't really out there. It's a bit like content and language integrated learning. It's a bit like total physical response.
It is.
Nobody's really mastered the art, I think, of really creating top-notch materials.
That's the thing too. Is like even if you had a complete curriculum, even if you had a great book or content, what it takes is practitioners, it takes training, it takes leadership, it takes kind of a community of, what do they call them, PLCs, right? Practical
personal
learning community. Is that it? That's the new thing. Yeah, I mean, I think that's what we're talking about, like kind of a movement in ESL drama education.
It's been underrepresented for so long. Like, let's do something with it. Let's see more of it. Like,
I'm on board.
Yeah, me too.
All right, well, more's coming. This is the first go. I'm not sure if anybody's even going to listen to this thing.
What are the hashtags we're going to put on this? Drama?
Hashtag
ELT chat or ELT ESL.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. Hashtag under-resourced. All right, signing off.